Hello everyone, and welcome to the third session of this set of YouTube videos created to demonstrate the utilization of programming and the resulting visualizations in understanding dynamics. This is a continuation of session 2, where we will play around with the projectile motion parameters and then launch projectiles on different planets. A projectile with no air resistance has two separate types of motion, one in the x direction and the other in the y direction. The parameters that affect the projectile trajectory are the launch velocity, launch angle, initial elevation measured from a reference point, and the gravitational acceleration constant. What if we want to observe the effect of each of these parameters on the projectile's trajectory? In the Maple workbooks that I am about to show you, we will use various values for one of the parameters while keeping all the other parameters at constant values in order to study the effect of individual parameters on the projectile's motion. In the first Maple workbook that we will be looking at, we will be varying the launch angles, velocities, and elevations in order to study the effect of these parameters on the projectile's trajectory. The user will be required to insert the following set of parameters. First, we need the gravitational acceleration constant. Then we have three sets or three parts. In the first part, we need a fixed launch velocity and launch elevation in order to study a set of launch angles. In the second part, we have a fixed launch angle and launch elevation to be studied with a list of launch velocities. And in the third part, we have a fixed velocity and fixed angle to be studied with a list of launch elevations. The user will insert the required set of parameters in this region here, where for this particular example, we can see that the gravitational acceleration constant is 9.81. The initial elevation is 60 meters and the initial velocity is 80 meters per second. In the first part, we will be studying a set of angles. These angles will be studied alongside with the fixed elevation and fixed velocity. In the second part, we will study different velocities. These velocities will be studied alongside with the fixed elevation and fixed angle. And in the third part, we will study different elevations where these elevations will be studied alongside with the fixed angle and fixed velocity. In order to run the Maple workbook, we will click Enter. Maple will run and produce the required results. Let's look at them one by one. In the first figure here, we are studying the effect of launch angle at fixed velocity and elevation. You can see here that the fixed velocity is 80 meters per second and the elevation is 60 meters, which are the values that were entered by the user. And then Maple runs the simulation and produces the projectile trajectories at different angles: 10, 20, 30, 45, 60, 70, and 80 degrees. In the second simulation, here we are studying the effect of initial velocity at fixed angle and elevation. You can see here that the velocities range from 20 to 80 with an increment of 10 meters per second. And you can see here that all the simulations have a fixed elevation of 60 meters and a fixed angle at launch, which is 30 degrees. In the third simulation, we are studying the effect of launch elevation at fixed velocity and angle theta, where you can see here that the fixed velocity and the angle are the values that were inserted by the user, and the simulations here are generated at different elevations starting from 0 to 150 with an increment of 25 meters. If we want to look at the three figures right next to each other on one line, then we can use the array function in our display command in Maple, and we can generate all three figures on the same line. Now let's try, just for the fun of it, to change some of the parameters here. Let's change the initial elevation to 100 meters, the initial velocity to 50 meters per second and the initial angle or the launch angle to 45 degrees. Of course, the user can change all these parameters here, but I'm just going to limit myself to the changes that I just made, and I'm going to run the Maple workbook again to produce the new results. You can see that the results have changed based on the information that was inserted by the user. How about varying the gravitational acceleration constant? What would that actually mean? While being on the same planet, varying the value of the gravitational acceleration constant means that the effect of gravity varies with altitude. This is not what I am referring to here. I want to study the effect of gravity on different planets on the projectile's motion. This necessitates that all other parameters, other than the gravitational acceleration constant, should be kept the same on both planets for the comparison to be valid. In the second Maple workbook that I will be showing you today, we will be doing exactly that. We will be performing a comparison between projectile motions on two planets. The user is required to insert the following information: launch velocity, launch angle, launch elevation. These pieces of information will be kept constant for both planets. Then the user needs to insert the gravitational acceleration constants for two different planets. Let's say planet Earth and planet Mars. The user inserts the required parameters here in this region. For this particular example, we have an initial velocity of 50 meters per second, initial angle 45 degrees, and height of 10 meters. These will be kept constant for both planets. Then the gravitational acceleration constant for planet Earth, which has this value, and that corresponding to planet Mars in this example, which is shown here. If we run the Maple workbook, Maple will produce the required simulation, where we can see here the projectile motion corresponding to planet Earth in blue color, and that corresponding to Mars in red color. The simulation shows the range and the maximum height for each planet. Let's try something different here. Let's insert the gravitational acceleration constant for our natural satellite, which is the Moon, 1.62, and run the simulation again. You can see that Maple produced the required simulation, and we have two plots here again. The first one corresponds to planet Earth, while the other corresponds to our natural satellite, which is the Moon. And you can see that the trajectory will stretch even farther on the Moon because it has a lower gravitational acceleration constant. I should mention that all the images used in this video were created by AI, while all the codes required for the Maple workbooks to function properly were provided by me. Thank you very much for being with me in this session, and hopefully I will see you in the upcoming sessions.